I'm Benjamin Hall, and I'm searching for heroes. Well, thank you for joining me, everybody. Our guest this week is Howie Sanborn. He's a retired U.S. Army veteran. He served for 15 years as an Airborne Ranger. He was a demonstrator team leader in the U.S. Army parachute team, the Golden Knights. But in 2012, while he was training for a triathlete, he was hit by a car when he was on his bike, and he was paralyzed from the waist down. But when you hear his story, he is someone who picked himself up straight away, said that he was going to go and achieve more things, more goals. And coming up in the next few weeks, he's going to be representing the US of A in the Paralympics in Paris as a triathlete. And it is a remarkable story, such incredible mental strength that he found to get through some of the hardest times. And so it's a great pleasure to have him on the podcast today. And it's a great pleasure to have you guys listening too. Thank you. If we could start by talking about that day back in 2012. And I don't want to talk about that day a lot, but I want to set the stage as what happened and then talk about everything that happened after that. So if it's okay, would you tell us what was happening in September 2012 when you were injured?
Yeah. So at the time I was on the Army parachute team, the Golden Knights. And so our mission is kind of do Army public relations and recruiting, jumping into air shows and such. And so we were at an air show in Kirksville, Missouri. And then as a side hobby, I had picked up, doing triathlon, and I had forced one of my teammates into it. I forced him onto my old bike, and we would train. We would bring our bikes on our plane and train at races. So that morning we went out for a 20-mile ride before the air show, just a quick, tuner ride. And we were 3 miles from the hotel, and a distracted driver left the road and hit me from behind, crashing both me and my teammate into a ditch. I honestly, the last thing I remember was the turnaround at the 10-mile mark. I don't remember those 7 miles coming back, and I don't remember the accident. And the things that I think I remember from it, I don't know if they're just like what people told me, and I've kind of converted them into memories, if that makes sense. But honestly, I don't remember getting hurt. I just remember waking up in ICU and being told I was paralyzed. And you kind of already know, like, I remember feeling down on my legs and just knowing like I couldn't feel anything. And it kind of a crazy story, a little bit of military background, but when they life flighted me from the accident scene to Columbia Hospital at Mizzou, the surgeon that met the helicopter when they were transferring me from the backboard onto the gurney noticed there was a lot of blood. And so he asked about my injuries, and there was no sign of a laceration. And it turned out that I had just gotten a laceration in just the perfect spot, that when I was laying on my back, it was pinched shut, but it actually a part of my bike had gone up and hit my femoral artery. And so I was bleeding out on the backboard, and they didn't realize it. Probably part of the reason I don't remember much, I was losing all my blood. And so this surgeon took me in, immediately fixed my femoral artery before we did back surgery, before we did anything, had to do that just to save my life. And he was actually 3rd Ranger Battalion. And so, yeah, like a little Ranger save, and actually, like, I have this coin in one of the coin cases back here. He gave me his Ranger coin, and we made him an honorary Golden Knight for saving my life.
Wow. So, it's amazing, isn't it, that sometimes, in the middle of some accident like this, the one person at the right time notices one thing to save your life. And like, you always ask yourself, how those things happen, how that one moment happened, how he noticed at that stage. And I don't know if you ever felt that he was right there at the right time, and if he was perhaps, there's a reason for that.
Yeah. And who knows what the exact reason was outside of saving my life, but like, it just lined, it stars aligned on that one, a little bit. And who knows, like, if the life flight had been a little slower or any of that, like, there's a good chance I don't make it. So the fact that he caught it, found it, fixed it, saved my life.
I've been reading all about your story and sort of other interviews you've done, and what stands out so clearly is that from the very beginning, you were in hospital, and like, I've spoken to many people who wake up and that's the hardest parts for them, that they don't know what the future is going to hold. They feel lost. You really felt drive straight away. Even in hospital, you were looking ahead to what you would do. Why are you able to do that? Where did you find that sort of optimism and that strength inside to never question, but to keep moving forward?
Oh man, I've thought about this a lot. Um, and you like to think you know your personality, you developed it, but I look back on like how I made that transition so quickly. Because I literally, like you said, I woke up and I started looking online at hand cycles and paratriathlon, and my friends and family were like, "Should you ride a bike again?" And I was like, you know what? Like everything just got taken from me, everything. But I can still do this. This is something I like. I'm passionate about, and I can still do it. So why am I going to let that be taken from me too? And I look back on like where that motivation comes, and a little bit I think has been this chip on my shoulder since I was a kid. I was the smallest kid in class. I joined the Army in 2000. I weighed 118 pounds. 5'5", 118 pounds. I was tiny. I joined with a Ranger contract. Like I wanted to be an Airborne Ranger, and so I think I've always had a little bit of chip on my shoulder where it's like, no, I want to prove everyone wrong. I want to prove myself right all the time. So it's like, what's the next thing I can do? I joined infantry, Airborne Ranger, military free fall, deployments, work my way up the ranks, like try out for the Golden Knights. Like I always wanted to be the best in the world at everything I did. And I kind of knew like, okay, they're going to retire me. What can I do next at the highest level possible? And they had just made paratriathlon a sport at the Paralympics. So that's just kind of lined up too. And I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. And I don't know what the future holds in it, but I do know that it gives me a purpose.
Yeah. It's funny because I've seen you say, I've always strived to be a little better than everybody else. And I thought I was going to ask whether you got that from your 15 years in the military as a ranger, but no, you had it before that.
Yeah, I think so. And, as a kid, like, I didn't do like a lot of sports in high school. I don't know. Some of that stuff didn't interest me. I knew I wanted to be in the military. I kind of knew what I wanted to do. But I did always like to be kind of the center of attention a little bit too, I think, since I was a little kid. And so I think that it just all kind of blended together, and then having certain leaders at the right time, whether it was with my Ranger unit or, the Golden Knights, like I just had these mentors along the way that just, I wanted to emulate and make sure that not only did I live up to their standard, but, did it a little bit better, everywhere I went.
I guess that's such an important thing. And, for anyone listening who is thinking, they might have had a mentor, they might have had someone who helps them. I think that in turn, you can hope to become a mentor to other people. And you certainly have. And I'm sure that you now see what you're doing. And you must know that it's helping people, that people see your story, see what you've done, and that lifts them up. And I wonder if you acknowledge that. I wonder if that makes you proud that you're doing that now.
Yeah, the reason I knew about paratriathlon is because in a triathlon magazine, I read about the founder of Challenge Athletes Foundation, who had, been hurt and transitioned and started doing paratriathlon. And I read that before I got hurt. And I think after I got hurt, I liked that idea. I liked that I knew about that. And I wanted to make sure that, as I moved forward, that people knew what existed out there. That way, in the event that they got injured, they would know. So not just being a mentor to other people that were injured, but hopefully being, a little bit of a mentor to people that might get injured, make sure that story's out there, make sure they know, life's not over when you have a traumatic injury.
Yeah. I mean, I know how easy it, if not easy, of course, but, how you got through this with such strength. But I have to ask, there must have been some moments when you're lying there in recovery where it must have been difficult, where you must have had a moment to think you weren't going to be able to do some things. And were there those moments as well? And how did you get through them when you did have them?
Yeah, I mean, there's some dark days, especially at the beginning, when you go from, the best in the world, literally on the best demonstration team. I was a team leader of the best demonstration team, to waking up in a hospital bed knowing, I'll never walk again and that I'll never do those things and never achieve some of the things that, I had on my bucket list that, at the end of the day, you have to recognize that you can't do. And I kind of told myself, one, I had a great support system. Let me say that first. I had a great support system that didn't let me sit in those dark days very long. And so I kind of told myself, like, it's okay to have these days. It's okay to have these feelings, but, I can't have them for too long. I can't sit down for too long and not move forward. So I kind of always motivated myself. And one of the ways that I did that is through organizations like the fund. Just knowing that there's organizations out there that could set up, whether it was the Warrior Games, I was part of the SOCOM with the Warrior team, or the Invictus Games, or the Valor Games, or different sports camps. I would go to those, and it would just be a constant reminder of like, hey, there's other people out here with similar injuries, maybe different injuries that seem more difficult to me, and I'm watching them, and they're inspiring me, and they're motivating me, and having that community is what helped me get through those really dark days.
Yeah, I feel that as well. And I think I've always felt how lucky I was to have that, because I guess there are some people, particularly sort of outside the military, or, I was working for Fox, I had people there. I knew I had that support, but there are people out there who go through serious injuries who don't feel they have that. And I guess that's one of the things that, you speaking out can try to give them that level as well.
I like to think it does. I got set up with Dare to Try. At the time, it was the only paratriathlon specific organization in the country. And I just happened to be rehabbing in Chicago. They were in Chicago. And so right away, learning that there were these communities out there. And so taking those opportunities, to venture out and, I tried all sorts of sports. I knew I wanted to do triathlon, but I did archery, I did ping pong, I did, wheelchair basketball. I did everything. I tried everything because I was like, I wasn't big. I was 5'5". I didn't play a lot of basketball, but I was like, maybe one of these sports, will spark an interest in me that I didn't think I had before, but maybe I'll have now. And so I definitely try to get that message out there. If you are newly injured, don't be afraid to just try new things and explore and learn about yourself.
You've also said that nothing compares to skydiving, but, triathlete is close. Have you been skydiving again?
I have.
Yeah. You have. Of course you have.
Yeah, and I still do quite a bit of indoor skydiving in the tunnel. Me and my girlfriend, we go frequently. She's also a skydiver, but I've only done one jump since I was injured. Went solo, went with a bunch of Golden Knight teammates. I can fly, I can still do it. And the only reason I haven't done it a lot is because, it is high risk. And when you're trying to go to the games, I can't risk an injury and a loss of time training. But once these games are done, we've got big plans to get back out there and do some jumps.
Oh, well, you got to keep us in touch when you do. Maybe we can come out and film that as well.
Yeah.
But of course, now we've got the games coming up. And I mean, you've got to tell me a little bit about what this is like. We were speaking earlier about, are you excited about the games? Are you nervous about the games? Are you both? And how do you get yourself in a mental position to be competing at the highest end in the world? What is your thought process as you go into this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super stoked, right? It's hard not to be. And so I've got kind of an interesting story about how I got to these games. I got hurt in 2012. Not a lot of time to get ready for Rio. So really, I was just kind of doing the sport for fun at that point. And then after Rio, I actually won the national championship. And I got to go live at the Olympic Paralympic Training Center in Colorado Springs and be a member of the resident paratriathlon team in hopes of going to Tokyo. And long story short, I didn't make those games. I was close. I was real close. And I didn't make the games. And I'll tell you what, as I moved out of the training center and watched my teammates head to Tokyo to compete,
tough,
that was rushing. I mean, it was as close to crushing as getting the injury was. And I told myself, nope, I'm not going to feel like this again. Not next time. So I got a new coach, Ken Axford from Peak Multisport, who I'd worked with before. He was in the Springs. And we just sat down for 2 hours and we're let's make a plan. Let's make a plan right now. And with the goal being the games. And so the last couple of years, there has been a lot of mental part of that as far as, there's always setbacks and things you can improve on. And so I think we've really worked on my mental game to get ready. So now it's all excitement, no real nerves. And when I do feel a little bit of nervousness, kind of I use a little something that us military guys have been deployed can use. And I'm like, it's not war, like people say like we're going to war when you go to the games. And I'm like, oh no, I've been to war.
Yeah.
War. Like this is high level competition, but it's not war,
Yeah.
It's not going to be the two-way,
That's funny. I do the same sometimes, and if I'm nervous about something coming up and anxious, I think, hang on a second. I'm pretty sure you've been to the worst. You've seen the worst. Right. This is going to be all right. And it helps a lot. It is a level of strength. And it's interesting what you said there. First of all, there's mental and there's physical. You were so close physically before, but you think it is the mental improvement since Tokyo. I'm trying to picture what that is, like how you focused on that mental part as much as physical.
One thing that really helped me through the fund, like they do more than just like, taking us on ski trips and helping us with equipment and stuff like that. They have classes. And one of the classes that I took like 2 years ago was one about routines, like how to get into healthy routines, healthy habits, like how to create those. And over the course of a couple of weeks, you're doing classes kind of online with a group and kind of workbooking some stuff. And I think it really helped me develop some really good habits that helped me stay really consistent in my training, both mentally and physically.
Is that a routine, say, what time you wake up, what time you eat, how many hours a day you practice? Are those the routines you're talking about?
For me, like I have a great coach. He keeps me accountable. I know I'm going to get my workouts in. That's a lock. So I wanted to focus on some of the smaller things. And that's where that course really helped me, where it was like, I started, I take, like daily supplements as far as like iron and, stuff to help me with my blood flow because I get blood clots in my legs. And so I started doing a habit where I use pill cases. And every Sunday I set up my week of pill cases. And then every morning, every evening I take my pills. And I got into that routine. So I'm always doing that. I've stayed super healthy this time, where leading up to Tokyo, I had like a lot of illness and injury. And this time, like, I think doing that, like staying on that little path right there is like one of the things. And then stretching. Like I started carrying around a band. I've got a stretch band with me. It's in the other room, but I'm doing bands all the time. Every night I'm using my Theragun. Like I got in these habits of doing the recovery work that I wasn't doing that much leading up to Tokyo. And I think that's one thing that gets overlooked by a lot of athletes is it's easy to go do the workouts, but there's work in between those workouts to get you ready for the next one. And so definitely recovery work was another one that I added in and just really created a habit of.
Yeah. I think I might start getting a routine of my own, because I know a couple of days ago I missed taking some of the medication for my nerves, and then I couldn't walk for a couple of days after that. And I'm like, gotta have a routine. Like, and I was so busy and I just forgot that one moment, and boom, out of that, one miss, and it hits you hard. So no, lesson for me as well. I want to go back to something you said a few minutes ago about you didn't make it to Tokyo, and you have that drive to say, not again. And that's what I want to try and capture in this whole podcast, everyone I speak to. What that is, to be knocked down and to say, I'm not being knocked down again. And can you tell me a little bit about that, where that is?
Yeah, man, I guess everyone interprets that feeling differently and how they react to it. And I think it's important to know that you get to make the decision to how you react. And I've built the habit, early on in my military career that, like, it's okay to fail. It's not okay to quit. Mm-hmm. And I say, and I'm not saying like you can't quit things, right? Some things, I tried basketball and I didn't like it. But once I quit it, it just wasn't for me, right? But when you have a goal and you take a setback, like I think it's important to say, okay, like what can I do to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Like what can I improve upon? And it is difficult. It's not easy. I mean, you wake up in the hospital and, your legs don't work. You don't just, literally and metaphorically, you don't just pop up and like start running again, like there's a process to it. And I hope everyone can take away a little bit of just that idea that like, it's okay to like take a moment and have a little misery, and then be like, all right, let's put down some notes, let's journal a little bit and see like what can I do next time that this doesn't happen to me again.
Do you actually have notes? Do you have a journal? Do you actually sit down sometimes and like literally write out your theory?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, when I do journal, it's a big help, journaling and scheduling. And for me, when I see it written down, I'm not a big, like, I know some people do those, like all the pictures and it's like dream boards or whatever. I don't really do that, but I do have like a lot of my military stuff up, Ranger tabs everywhere. And I just remind myself like who I am and like what I want. And so I think having those and figuring out what works for you, but having those things around you that constantly remind you not just what you wish you had or wish you were, but remind you what you're working towards and how you can achieve it.
You're listening to Searching for Heroes with Benjamin Hall. We'll be right back. I often thought when I was sort of in ICU and recovering, I thought, if I'm going to get through this well, I need to talk to people, note things down, because if I just keep them inside and I don't even just share them and note them down for myself, that starts to grow inside you. So have you found that just being open and talking to people helps and has helped you? And in turn, do you think that, say someone listening is having a difficult time, would you also say, go and talk to someone, go and say something, get it out? Has that been a positive for you?
100%. Like we talked about community, that's like more than just sports. That's more than just, hobbies. It's meeting other people and hearing their story and learning from it and being able to tell your story and relearning from it. I feel like there's a lot of times where, like, let's say like swimming, like I'll be struggling in my lane and I'm just like, man, like, what am I doing? Like, what's wrong? And then, the person in the other lane, I'll just be like, hey, like, a little free coaching from my coach, like, have you tried doing this? And then it reminds me like, oh yeah, I should be doing that too. Like I need to make sure I'm doing the little things, like talking to them and like, kind of giving them advice that I've received helps me again. So like relearning from advice that I've gotten, advice that I've given. So I do think being open with my story has helped me a lot, just as much as I'd like to think it's helped other people.
Yeah. You mentioned community, and until like a few episodes ago on this podcast, I was always saying it is all about community and teamwork. That's how we get through things. But someone said to me recently, it's like maybe 80 or 90% teamwork, but there has to be that 10% that is just you. You can have all the support you need, but you have to say to yourself, okay, I've been put in a position. Now I have to do it. And it's really a new idea to me. But do you think as well that all the help you get, you've still got to have it inside you for that one final moment that you go?
Yeah, I mean, I would say early on, I was doing like a lot of sports camps, ski camps, stuff like that. And man, that community gave me such a high, such this feeling of like what was possible. And then I would go home. And that's where I would have like some of my lowest days is once I got home and I was by myself. And that 10% hits you pretty hard sometimes when you're by yourself. It is really hard to like really get that motivation to follow through. And it's something I had to work on a lot early on. But whoever told you that's 100% correct. Like there are times where you're on your own and you need to make sure that the tools that you've collected through community, through things you've learned, like those tools in your toolbox, you take them out and you use them when you're by yourself, not just when you're with the group.
Yeah. So what are you thinking about when you're just about to start, the triathlon's about to start, you are on the line? What does a pro athlete think? Is it, this is what I have learned, or is it now just let's not focus, let's do what I've trained? Like, what are the thoughts going through your head as you're about to start?
Yeah, I mean, what's the old saying? Fail to plan to fail. Mm-hmm. And so, we go into every race, every competition with a plan. And that plan I'm thinking about daily in training. I'm thinking about when I'm in the pool, I'm thinking about what that start's going to be like. When I'm taking off to do 100, I'm thinking about my competitors. I'm thinking about tactics. I'm thinking about strategy that we have planned for the upcoming race. And then when we get there, because you've done all that, like, you just lock it in. You just take a couple deep breaths and you race the plan. And I mess with my competitors hard too. We'll be sitting on the pontoon getting ready to go, and it'll be a right-hand swim. We're going to go out, we're going to turn all the buoys on the right side, and I'll be like, hey, left-hand turns, right? Left-hand turn, left-hand turn. And everyone's like, no, I think it's right-hand turn. And I'm like, no, I think it's left-hand turn. Like, start messing with it, psych them out. Like in pre-race stuff the day before, I'll just be like, oh man, I'm going to go set my power record on this practice day. Like, if you're not going out there hard, like, what are you even here for? That's not the day to do it, right? But then you'll see them. I kind of want to like chase it a little bit.
That's
and you're
funny.
over there like, have fun,
That's so funny. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I keep it pretty light. I'm usually the one that's pretty fired up and loud, and it irritates some people. But hey,
whatever it takes, you got to do whatever it takes to win.
Yeah, we can shake hands and have a beer after, and we've all known each other for like a decade. Being all my competitors, so they'll get along. But hey, it's racing. You got to be ready. You're at the top level. Like,
is it hard after such a big, competition as the Paralympics, right after it, and you've been training for 4 years, and then suddenly, boom, everything you've worked towards is kind of finished. What happens, in that moment after really big events? Is it automatically like, next one, here we come, or is it let's enjoy this for a bit? And what are you thinking?
I mean, I can speak to it a little. Obviously, I've never been to a games, but I can say we raced in March. That was the U.S. kind of qualifier, like selection event. And so up to that point, we knew that I guaranteed us a U.S. spot to the games, just points based. We knew there was no way that I wouldn't be top 10. But if someone beat me at that race, they would get the spot. Even though I've done the work, at the end of the day, the U.S. wants to take the best athlete. Totally fair, totally understood. So you go into that race with some pressure, and I pretty much knew I was a lock. There's still some pressure. And so when that race was over, it's just like, like, it's almost crazy. Like, all of this like stress that you didn't think you had, and this weight that's on you is suddenly gone. And I definitely, after those types of things, like, I like to take, like, it's not a long time, it's like a minute, but it's just like to myself, where I just like roll off my wheelchair and I just like decompress and like really like think about what just happened and like what it means. It just takes some big soothing breaths, and I'm just like, all right, like, let's enjoy this. Like, let's take a day. So this time, actually, so right before Tokyo, I donated some money and got a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle, a $900 bottle of Pappy, and I got it right before the Tokyo selection. And I was like, when I make this team, I'm gonna crack this open, and we're gonna have Pappy. And I didn't make the team, and so I put this thing in my gun safe, and I've just had this bottle of Pappy in there, waiting. And I'm like, I'm gonna open this when I make the Paris team. So I have a special like hard case made for it, and I took it to Florida with me. And after the race, cracked it open. I had 3 custom glasses made, one for me, one for my coach, and one for my buddy who's my handler at races that helps me with my race. And we poured a little Pappy out, had a little celebration, poured a little Pappy for everyone. And so I took that moment, to just really let it sink in. Like, like, it's not over yet, like, we're not at the games yet, but like we made it, like, we're going.
Is there Pappy left though? Is the Pappy going to Paris?
There's a little bit of Pappy left. I'm not sure I'm going to take it to Paris. I might save it for when we get back so we can have like a little bit of more celebration. But yeah, it's smooth. I'll say that. It's real smooth.
I bet. Well, I don't think I've ever spent so much on a bottle, but maybe I'll find something to reward myself by doing that. And of course, like, you served for 15 years, but you are back again representing, your country. And I imagine that's your father and your grandfather were both in the military. So I know how much it means to you and to your family. And what momentum did that give you to be wearing those colors again?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons that I want to join the military. I mean, my dad and grandfather both Army. I had uncles in every branch of the service. On my mom's side, my grandfather was Army. My grandmother was in the Women's Army Corps. So I come from a long line of military. And people ask me all the time, like, why'd you choose? Like, what made you decide to join the Army? And I'm like, I don't know. I can't tell you. Like, it was just always what I knew I was going to do. It was just, there's pictures of me. My dad's got pictures of me at like, I'm like 3 years old. I'm in like all BDU uniform, like as a little kid, like, like I just knew that was my purpose. That was my destiny. And when I got hurt, you take that crushing blow, but I looked at it, I'm like, how can I continue to represent my country? It was definitely on my mind. And it mattered to me, like I wanted to be able to continue to serve in some capacity. And this triathlon career has given me that opportunity to put on the red, white, and blue and go back out there and represent the USA in a positive way, in a way that is high level of competition.
Mm. It's funny because everything we talk about and everything that you've shown and what you've done, and even when you talk to your competitors and you rile them up a little bit, that seems countering to sort of how calm you are in person. You come across as such a calm, relaxed person. And I find it fascinating to imagine what's actually going on up there. Would you say that's true? Would you say that sort of, you have a different personality sometimes up front to how you really are driven?
Oh yeah. There's definitely times where like, just hanging out, BSing before races. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to crush you. I'm just ready to crush everyone, win, lose, whatever. Like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to hammer. Like, that's what's on my mind, But I do want it to be fun for everyone, and I want to grow the sport, and I want it to be inviting. So I do my best to make sure that, that's the personality that comes across. And then once the gun goes off, it's not playtime. Like, we're going to compete, we're going to be going hard. So, yeah.
So let's finish this up if we could. What would you say to someone, who has gone through something that's really difficult? Someone who, isn't certain what they might do next, who's been hit hard. Like, what would your message be to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing I tell anyone, as I've met people with new injuries is, life's not over. It's not. Like, there's so much out there that you can still do. And it doesn't have to be sport at the highest level. It does not have to be sport in general. Like, there's just things you can do out there to go and inspire people and motivate people and continue to grow as a person. And so to take those opportunities, find organizations like the fund, or if you're not military, there's civilian organizations like Dare to Try and Adaptive Adventures. Like, these organizations exist out there. So don't sit down for too long. Find your next purpose, find your next passion, and take every opportunity you can to just go and explore.
Yeah. But Howie, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to be watching on that day. I'm going to be cheering you on. And I know you're going to represent the country, and you're going to do everything you can to win that day.
You know it. Yeah. Go all out. Yeah. I had a motto since missing the Tokyo Games, and it's burn the ships. And it goes back to a story of a pirate captain. His men wanted to retreat, and so he sunk the ships. Everyone says burn the ships. Apparently he sunk them, but burn the ships mean you're all in. There's no going back. Like, you only move forward. So I'm going to burn the ships. I'm going to get there, and it's going to be all eyes on the gold. So
I love that. I just got a chill down my back hearing that, man. Burn the ships. Like, dedicate yourself to something and don't see anything else than getting it done. Set that goal and you reach it. Yeah. Oh, good man. Howie, what a pleasure to speak to you today. All the best. Go win it. And, let's go USA.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We're But I thought that was quite funny towards the end. I think that we started to see what drives an Olympian, and you start to see what Howie is thinking about as he goes into this. It is as much mental as it is physical, and he is ready to go and do whatever it takes to win. And that's an incredible drive that not many people have, that when he gets knocked back, whether it was being paralyzed or whether it wasn't making Tokyo, he went out and tried to do it better, do it harder. And I just think so often I wish more people had that ability to say, all right, I failed today, I didn't do well today, but I will go out and do better tomorrow. And certainly I think as a parent, that's one of the stories, one of the messages that I try to teach my own children as well. It's okay if you don't come first, but go out tomorrow and see if you can. Do what you can to find it. But a great pleasure to speak to an Olympian, a Paralympian, and I know we'll all be watching as he tries to bring back that gold in Paris. But thank you everyone for listening today. I really appreciate it. And again, if you're having a tough day today, if something's not going well, just know that the tough times always pass. And if you put your mind to it and you set those goals in place, you'll get there. Talk to someone if it's a tough time. That helps as well. That's something that all my guests say. Share, find a goal, drive forward, and you'll get there. Thanks for listening, everyone. Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcasts Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.